Hi, I'm James Walker, Senior Editor at Data Center Knowledge, coming to you live from the news desk at Data Center World 2025 in Washington, DC. I'm here with Romi Mahajan, CEO of ExoFusion. Romi has been an executive in the technology space for 25 years now, including spending a decade at Microsoft and being CMO at 6 award-winning startups. He's an investor, author, marketer, and strategist. Romi, thank you for joining us.
It's such a pleasure to be here.
We've got lots to dive into today.
Yeah.
Power and energy, a huge topic,
Yeah.
both of this year's Data Center World. And the growth forecasts are phenomenal. I think we were talking earlier that data centers are currently consume at least 3% of the world's electricity, and this could rise to 10% within the next 5 to 7 years.
Yes.
So what's your view on the current energy mix? And can we realistically meet this demand without a major shift in strategy?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, right? I mean, I tend to think of it in terms of what I call the energy stack, right? So if you look at current U.S. Power, about 3% consumed by data centers. Worldwide, it's a little less, but it's growing at a very fast rate. Most of the net new power that's going to come online in the world is based on fossil fuels, right? Coal. If you look at Indonesia, India, China, and so on and so forth, U.S. gas, some nuclear, and so on and so forth, nuclear fission, that is. But with the voracious appetite for power, with the growing population, with AI, with crypto, with innovation, we need to solve this problem. So the energy stack has to be radically changed, in fact, inverted. I think we need much more clean nuclear power. And then, of course, the grail of energy, which is nuclear fusion, which has 4 times the energy density of fission itself. So I think we do need a radical change in strategy.
Okay, great. Well, let's talk a little bit more about nuclear. There are currently more than 90 reactors currently in operation across the US.
Yes.
And that provides roughly 20%
Yes.
of the country's electricity. So I guess people are consuming nuclear energy whether they realize it or not.
Correct, yeah.
And I know that dedicated small modular reactors, so-called SMRs, for data centers have been making headlines, but most are still in the early stages of development.
Yes.
So what's the pipeline here, and how do you see the nuclear energy landscape evolving over the coming years?
Yeah, so let me split it into traditional nuclear, which is fission, right? Different technology, and fusion, which is, instead of breaking something apart, you're putting them together, right?
Yeah.
Fusion is we're the closest to commercialization and commercial viability that we've ever been, but we're still some ways off. And there needs to be a lot of scientific innovation, technological innovation, and capital put into fusion. With regard to fission and SMR, small modular reactors, there's a lot of interesting work being done. There's kind of a mixed reception in the general persona or the public sphere. That said, I think it's very promising as a good stopgap measure to get to fusion. That said, having an energy monoculture is a terrible idea for the world. Right. So you need a stack. You need some fusion, some fission, some wind, some solar, some hydro. And of course, fossil fuels aren't going away. The question is, can we diminish them as a percentage of the total so that we can have a sustainable world, but also meet the voracious demands for energy?
Okay, thank you. Data Center World this week, there's been a huge focus on the growth of the industry and AI and power and the interplay between all of these elements. And while there is a lot of focus on the growth, some have said that there are maybe potential signs of cooling off, maybe due to more efficient models like DeepSeek, some hyperscalers pulling back on projects, and maybe some more just general growing skepticism about AI's pace and its viability in the business sector.
Yeah.
Are we at risk of an AI bubble, and how might this impact long-term power planning?
Yeah, I would say that at any point in the adoption of any technology, there is always a risk that there's a hype cycle and a bubble. Yeah. Nothing is inevitable other than the decisions humans make, right? So there's a tendency to have kind of this techno-positivism that says that everything will always be up to the right. And that is true sometimes, and it is false sometimes. I think there are signs both that suggest a buoyant growth of AI and also some brakes that have been put on. And this is not insider information. This is public information around leases being canceled, around questioning AI's growth. And then there's an entire side of very intelligent sort of activist-oriented people who are saying we need to check the growth before we have regulation and before we have an ability to create sustainable power. all of these are very viable voices that need to meet together and discuss. There is no inevitability here. We could be in a bubble, we may not be, or we could just have a smaller growth than is prognosticated. There are the deep seeks of the world. There are these, what are they called? White rhinos that come in that change things. And every now and then there's a bluebird that flies in as well. So we have to be extremely judicious in not taking PR as fact.
Yeah, okay, thank you. On the issue of, I guess, PR and public perceptions of the industry, I know you're passionate about community issues, and from my perspective, AI has really brought data centers into the public spotlight, almost how the WannaCry ransomware outbreak in 2017 brought the importance of cybersecurity to the general public.
Absolutely.
Do you think that AI is destined to make data centers a kitchen table issue? And could this be a moment to, dare I say, improve the industry's public image?
Yeah, I don't know that it goes as far as the kitchen table, but it certainly is much, much broader in the public perception. The idea of a data center, even though cloud computing has been around for a while, was really unknown, right? Now people at least understand, in fact, evidenced by the growth of this show, right? And the number of people here. Public perception and its interplay with corporate perspective and PR is very, very important. And I think right now, big tech and big energy have many, many issues to deal with regard to public perception, views of fairness and equality, views of paying market prices, and of course the impact of all of this investment on sustainability and communities. Those are real conversations. Too often they're poo-pooed by industry, and these people need to be embraced, right? Not co-opted, but listened to.
Yeah, okay, great. I guess beyond the NIMBYism or regulatory hurdles, there is that broader perception challenge. And what else can the industry do to bring communities on side? And why is it in their own best interest?
I'll speak from the perspective of someone who's studied and been in the tech world and understands tech and understands also the kind of super profits that tech makes, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have companies making 10, 12, $15 million of revenue per employee, there's absolutely more they can do to pay market prices for power and to invest in the communities where they are building infrastructure. I don't see any reason why a community couldn't get a $10 million scholarship fund or something like that from a company building a $2 billion data center. Yeah. You don't need 99% margins in any business. Why not take 93 or 84, right? So I think there's a lot more real interplay between sustainability, communities, and profit that needs to happen, and it's leaning too much on the profit side right now.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess going back to the critical issue of power and the energy stack, as you refer to it, besides nuclear, what alternative or emerging energy sources are you most optimistic about? Are there any other technologies that are kind of under the radar?
Yeah. It's hard to answer that in the sense of beside nuclear, right? Because I'm very excited about advances in fission and what have been called the nuclear renaissance, as long as it's safe and understood and so on and so forth. But frankly, and it's a little self-serving, I'm most excited about nuclear fusion. Why? 4 times the energy density of fission, and also really not dealing with the downside, right? Which is the waste issues. It's not that they don't exist, but they're massively mitigated. I do believe that energy majors and current fission players will invest heavily in fusion, and we'll have an energy mix of renewables, of which nuclear will be a large part and fusion will be a large part. These are conversations have converged into a singularity. You cannot talk about data center without power, you can't talk about power without nuclear, and you can't talk about nuclear without fusion.
Okay, thank you. Romi, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. It's clear that energy innovation and public trust will shape the next chapter of data centers. So we appreciate your time and perspective here at Data Center World.
And I thank you for your incredible questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.